Well, A24's Death of a Unicorn is a movie that I saw recently, and it does meet the classification of a movie, I guess. I mean, it has what you could consider a story, starring actors who play what some may perceive as characters. But does that make it a good movie? Well, I'd say that Death of a Unicorn has all the excitement of foreplay with Helen Keller, and is about as endearing as a wet fart. I guess some of the ideas were interesting enough, and it has a good cast with a reliable studio backing it up. But on the whole, there really isn't many positive things I could say about the movie. So let's do the opposite of that and talk about all the reasons why Death of a Unicorn sucks. Number 1. The story and characters. One of the most important parts of any movie is the characters. Characters are what ultimately gets the viewers invested in a story, and it is how we interpret the world they inhabit. And watching their experiences increases this investment because we feel like we're on the journey with them. We either want them to succeed or survive, or simply enjoy seeing them on screen. This is something that A24 is usually really good at, and while the film does lay some promising groundwork early on, particularly in establishing a complicated father-daughter dynamic between Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega. But despite this strong setup, it ultimately struggles to follow through on this storyline in a meaningful or satisfying way. The main plot of the film centers around Elliot, as he's coming up on a big promotion at his law firm and wants to impress his boss, Odell. Elliot and his daughter Ridley are invited to stay at a remote but luxurious mountainside mansion with Odell's family for the weekend. This comes into conflict with Ridley, who after the death of her mother, has become estranged from Elliot and really can't be bothered to hang out with a bunch of rich snobs.
Ah, shit! Look what you did, you rich little fuck!
On their way to the mansion, Elliot hits a baby unicorn on the road, almost killing it. Ridley touches the horn of the unicorn and goes on a DMT trip, which gives her some kind of celestial connection to them. While this is happening, Elliot decides to finish off the unicorn with a fucking tire iron, and the two then bring the body with them to the mansion for some reason, even though Elliot doesn't want anyone to know about this. Why doesn't he just toss it off the side of the road into some bush or something and grab it on the way back?
Well, that's just lazy writing.
But if these are the kinds of questions we're going to be asking, I'm afraid this movie is only going to get worse. The unicorn, of course, is quickly discovered by Odell, and the rest of the film centers around the rich family trying to exploit the unicorns for their mystical resources. While Ridley, on the other hand, wants to save the unicorns and protect them from further harm. All the while, two unicorns begin attacking the mansion in order to get their baby back. Elliot is caught in the middle of the struggle, wanting to both further his career and provide for Ridley, but in doing so he pushes her away at the same time. Unfortunately, the movie begins to really drag after the unicorn is discovered. The revelation of the unicorn's healing abilities takes up what feels like most of the film, huge chunks of which are devoid of any comedy or tension. It's just a series of repetitive scenes that reveal how selfish the rich family is. Elliot's struggle of choosing between his daughter and his employer keeps coming up, but with no change in his decision. It's not until the end of the movie that Elliot sees how wrong he was for helping Odell. However, because the same situation keeps playing out over and over again, it's easy to lose interest in his character arc. Jenna Ortega as well feels quite stripped down in this movie, and not in the way we'd all enjoy. She has no real personality besides being pouty. And while Ortega delivers a solid performance, it's again that the script really holds her back from becoming anything more than just a plot device. But the worst part of all of this is how predictable the movie is. You know that the evil rich family is going to get killed by their own stupidity and greed. You know that Elliot is going to eventually side with his daughter against the family, finally mending their relationship. And you knew that Ridley was going to be right all along. And the message that man should respect nature or some shit is going to be more in your face than a pair of saggy melons at a Kentucky strip club. None of it came as a shock. The movie also makes the mistake of revealing too early that the unicorns have some kind of connection to Ridley. It was pretty apparent that they had no real intention of harming her, so most of the action scenes felt pretty underwhelming because the audience already knows that Ridley was never in any real danger.
Boring!
The evil rich family also really lacked the presence they needed for this kind of over-the-top role. The script clearly designs Odell and his family to be these idiotic rhino-hunting capitalists that are the clear villains of the movie. However, for the most part, these performances fell flat. They aren't funny enough to be entertaining, nor are they interesting enough to be compelling antagonists. In a way, it reminds me of the same kind of surface layer observations we got from Mickey 17.
Of social critiques, while at the same time very funny and entertaining. And you have to dig a little bit, I think, to get those themes.
Right.
There is no real meaning behind anything in these stories besides, rich people are bad, and poor people are good. And sure, if that's all you wanted to say, then go for it. But at least make your characters and story entertaining enough to distract us from your shallow perspective.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
Number 2. Horror comedy. Blending themes together can be a challenging task in its own right. And blending two completely opposite themes can even be more of a challenge. Horror and comedy don't often go well together, but when they do, there is often a strong consistency throughout the movie. The director will give one theme more precedence over the other. For example, Shaun of the Dead is primarily a comedy with some small bits of horror sprinkled throughout the movie. Like when Shaun sees Pete come out of the shower, or when his mom turns into a zombie. There is some real tension and fear in the audience during these scenes. But for most of the film, you're met with lighthearted jokes.
I'm taking a shortcut before.
This could also be said about Ghostbusters, World's End, or Zombieland. These movies are funny, but also take the time to raise the stakes for the main characters by making their monsters intimidating and more powerful. The opposite is true as well. For example, Scream is a horror movie with comedic scenes that were improvised by the cast in order to add more to the characters. The movie opens with a creepy phone call that ends in a grisly murder. But you find out later that one of the murderers is Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and that he's just a big idiot.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
It doesn't change the overall vibe of the movie, but it adds some much needed levity that makes the characters stand out. The importance of juggling these two themes is to at least follow through on one of them. If the movie is scary, then make it fucking horrifying. And if it's a comedy, then I should be laughing throughout the movie. Death of a Unicorn, on the other hand, is neither scary to watch, nor is it very funny. It really feels like a movie that doesn't know what it wants to be. While the idea of making a mythical creature that is typically associated with the more feminine aspects of fantasy, and making it into a monster is interesting in theory, in practice, however, the unicorns never really came across as a terrifying presence. They weren't mysterious enough to be interesting, and much of their on-screen appearance made them underwhelming to look at. They're not some indescribable aliens or mysterious ghosts that haunt the characters. They're just unicorns. This becomes very apparent by the end of the film when you see the unicorns in daylight and they just look like beefed up horses. It's just not particularly intimidating. Often, what makes a good monster in a horror film is how much you don't see of them. The more that is left up to the viewer's imagination, the better. That way, the audience essentially has time to scare themselves by having their own idea of what the monster actually looks like. By having unicorns as the movie's main threat, we as the audience already know what these creatures look like, and we know what their capabilities are. There's really nothing to discover about them, and so the movie is already limited because there's nothing to reveal to us. Now, of course, this could be forgiven if the movie was a lot funnier, but this is another aspect that Death of a Unicorn fails at. The tone and pace shift awkwardly throughout the movie, giving long stretches of scenes with little horror or comedy, instead giving us lessons on class division. Even when the humor is prevalent, it is often undermining the scene's stakes, making the unicorns less intimidating of a threat.
What I mean is, can you be scary?
How about no?
Most of the comedy falls on Will Poulter's character, who is the spoiled idiot son of the rich family. And for his part, he does a good job with the material given, but on his own, it simply wasn't enough to support the other cast members. Which is surprising because people like Paul Rudd and Anthony Carrigan are natural comedic actors.
You fucked it, man.
Number 3. That's it, I guess. Now I could go deeper into this movie and probably spend an hour ripping it apart, going into every scene and every line of dialogue. I could go over the bad acting, the bad writing, and so on, but honestly, Death of a Unicorn doesn't really deserve that kind of attention. It's a nothing movie, really. There is no substance to grab onto, no deeper meaning to explore, no groundbreaking storytelling, enjoyable characters, or fresh perspective. Which is too bad because this movie had the chance to be a lot more. The concept was interesting enough, and the cast was filled with talented comedians who have proven themselves in the past. But in the end, it just felt like a payday. I never got the impression that this was someone's passion project, or that it was a film that anyone really wanted to make. My biggest takeaway is that I hope A24 goes in a different direction in the future. There has been some talks online about the company shifting to more franchise-building movies, which is nice in theory, but if this is their idea of how to get things started, this is all gonna go as well as the Mummy franchise did. So if you were thinking about watching this movie, I recommend you save your money by waiting until it comes out on Netflix to waste your time then. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It goes a long way. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?